Howdy, folks. This is Chris White, and you're listening to Basic Business Advice. This morning, it's just Tyler and I from the normal crew here to share a little bit about local business here in Holmes County and coffee. And so Rena and Sebastian are here to share with us about Millersburg Coffee Company.
Yeah, thank you.
What is that? Let's start there. Let's just start there. What is Millersburg Coffee Company?
Sure. So
first is local and international.
Local and international. I've
Yeah.
duly noted.
the distinction is very important. It's a company that is, of course, based here in Holmes County, but we also have an arm in Colombia where all the beautiful coffee beans come from. So that's why I think my husband is very particular about how we describe ourselves, because we want folks to know that we're going to his hometown in Colombia, South America. We're sourcing all the beans with our team there, testing them out, bringing them here to the U.S. directly, and then he roasts them here in Holmes County in Millersburg on our family property. So that's why he's very like, no, don't get it wrong. We love being local, but we are also global. So
that's a very natural connection. Millersburg, Ohio, Appalachian,
Totally.
Amish, Colombian. What is the connection? I mean, obviously, she said it's your hometown.
Yep.
But why here? Why is it happening in this place?
Mm-hmm. So we have a long family history. My family came here back in the 80s. My parents actually met in New York City. My dad is Dr. Deepak Arora. A lot of people in this region know him. Served a lot of folks for decades as an obstetrician gynecologist. So he and my mother met in New York City in a hospital. They had an opportunity to come here to Holmes County, and I believe it was 1984, 1985. They decided to go for it because they saw that it was a community that needed their expertise. And so they came here, they made their home here. They built a beautiful home on 50 acres of land, not too far from the quote unquote new Roadies, because when we moved here, the Roadies was downtown. And they just kept that property ever since. And it served a lot of different functions. It was a great place for us, for children to grow up, because we were able to run around and do whatever we wanted. And then one day my dad decided he wanted to turn it into a bed and breakfast after my parents had temporarily relocated to the Cleveland area. So every summer from the time I was 16 years old until I graduated from college, I was managing that place, not knowing anything what I was doing about what I was doing. And then just eventually, we all grew up and moved on. And my mother passed away back in 2015, but my dad kept the house, kept the property, and they just... him and my dad, we can get into that whole story, but Sebastian and my dad decided it would make a great place for a coffee roastery.
It does. I've been there. It is very cool. And your plans for it are very cool. So let's not jump too far ahead of that. So, Sebastian, what do we need to know about Colombia's connection? What do we need to know about what's happening down there?
Well, in Colombia, we make Millersburg Coffee International.
Mm-hmm.
So when they're we're looking for the Rina say the coffee beans, and then export to United States. But right now we have a possibility to export to Australia too.
Nice.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. So hopefully we go Millersburg in the world, because that's our goal too. That's the name, and that's something we want to people recognize this town locally.
Mm-hmm.
The other day, I went to Akron to a minority business, B2B.
Mm-hmm.
They asked me about the company. I said, "Oh, it's Millersburg." So where is Millersburg?
Yeah.
And I was like, "Oh, it's a small town close to Worcester. It's very Amish." I was like, "Oh, okay." And why you go there? Why are Colombian?
Yeah, same question, exactly.
All United States go to Millersburg, Ohio.
Yeah.
And I said, people say whatever they say, but I love it.
Yeah.
It's a cool small town. People is nice.
Yeah, very welcoming. They were like that back in the 80s when my parents came here too, because my dad is from India.
Yeah.
My mother was white. And so, they were one of the very few mixed/brown couples in the area at that time. And I grew up feeling like I'm at home. No one ever treated us like we didn't belong here.
Yeah.
And I think you've told me that you feel that same way.
Yeah. The international aspect of this is super important to your guys' story, but there's also the story of why you're even doing this. Why coffee? What's the motivation? Let's get into that.
Well, I think it probably started after our wedding, right? Would you say?
Yeah.
So we had our wedding back in 2018 in Panama. And it was kind of a nice little middle ground for our family from the US, our family from Colombia to all come meet there. So then after our wedding, we actually took my dad to Colombia. He'd never been there before. So this was early 2019. And we were thinking, what can we do with him that would be fun besides just, seeing the family, whatever. And we had gone to, did we go to Don Manolo first or no? That was our first time.
No, because we buy like coffee from there.
Right. So there's a bunch of coffee farms in Colombia. You go into the mountains not too far from the city where he's from, and you get to tour their farms, and they let you taste the coffee and all of that. So we had been buying coffee from this brand called Don Manolo, and we love them. They're wonderful people. They've really helped us so much, just giving us advice too. So we took Dad there to do the whole coffee farm experience. And they had a tour guide who spoke English. She, would split her time between Miami and Colombia. So she was very familiar with, the international audience, which was great. So she took us on this tour, showed us all the plants. We saw the bean inside the cherry, and we, went through the drying, the whole thing. It was probably like a 2-hour experience. And it was on a property not dissimilar from our property here in Holmes County. The only big difference is we obviously can't really grow the coffee trees here because of the climate. But otherwise, it was just like a nice big property where they could do everything from growing it to packing it to serving it. So we went through that whole thing, and we sat down and tasted the coffee, and my dad was basically like, we could do this, right? And then I think the two of you really got inspired early 2019. But then you were in the process of getting your paperwork to move to the United States. So we couldn't really do anything about it right away. And then by the time he got to the US, it was early 2020, and we know what happened after that. So
yeah, that doesn't have anything to do with anybody's plans.
No, it didn't throw anything. But you've been passionate about coffee for a long time.
Yeah.
Yeah. So why passionate about coffee?
You walk in the street, and sometimes you see the coffee trees here, you see corn.
Yeah.
It's okay.
It's all good. You're good.
Yeah. So, all the time, Colombia want to people there want to innovate. They bring new stuff. So they want explore how you make what is the new tendency
in coffee.
Yeah, and you always get that exciting. It's oh, I want to try something new in coffee, because this is we feel very passionate about coffee, because it's the thing representing the world, a good thing.
Yeah. And I think even going back, let's address the elephant in the room. Colombia's history has been very contentious, particularly on the global scale. And
yeah, because coffee wasn't always
not what it was
the
mostly
number
known
one
for.
thing it was known
was not
for.
the number one export. Let's put it
Right.
that way. So, even we see on TV all the time these narco shows that are talking about, Pablo Escobar and drugs and guerrillas and what. And so that was the narrative of Colombia for such a long time. Even, when Sebastian was born, I mean, Pablo Escobar had died already.
Right.
Or no. He was almost, yeah, he was in jail. He was they had almost taken him out. So that's so far removed from Sebastian's history, from the history of a lot of young people there who are trying to make their way in the world. And we're a much more global society now than we were back then because of the internet and smartphones and all of that. And so the narrative of Colombia was just so drug and violence focused. But then inside there was stuff going on with coffee too. And I think now it's the narrative has started to turn around, for various geopolitical reasons, et cetera, that, I'm not an expert on all of that, so I'm not going to get into it. But now it's they had been exporting their coffee as well for the longest time, right? All the good stuff was being sent out of the country for such a long time. They weren't keeping any of it for themselves.
Right.
So his grandmother's generation, his parents' generation, they would make café con leche, which a lot of people know as coffee with milk. And it's basically milk flavored coffee. Do you want me to stop, by the way?
No, you go. Go.
Okay.
We're going. We're doing this. For anybody who's listening.
There's a lot going on in the room right now.
For anybody who's listening, Tyler has been actively trying to cure a video problem, and Rena and I have been just
we're just trying to keep going.
We're just whatever. We're going to make this happen.
That's
It's organic. It happens.
It happens, and it's it's live TV, quote unquote.
It's right. That's right.
We're going live.
Yeah.
So no, keep going, because this is. I appreciate what you're saying about this and the changing narrative.
Yeah. So let me back up a little. Sorry. Let me start over just with this part. So again, my husband's parents, my in-laws, and his grandparents, they grew up with the ashes of the coffee, because what was happening for so long in Colombia's history is they were exporting all of their coffee and keeping practically nothing for themselves. So they were left to deal with whatever was left behind.
Yeah.
And that was usually burnt, nasty, bad excuse for coffee. So they had to adapt to it. And they made things like café con leche, where they basically took the milk and put like a little bit of the coffee ashes and they heated it up and they made a drink out of it.
Yeah.
And so it's only been in the last, 10 to 15 years, I would say, that they have started to keep some of their product at home. And they've said, hey, wait a minute, why are we giving everybody all of our good stuff? We deserve this too. And so since then, there's been a lot of what my husband was saying, like so much innovation around what has been going on in the coffee space. So like there are things going on down there with flavor infusions and different pour over techniques and just different machinery coming out that has not even made its way here to the US.
Sure.
It's wild, like what's going on down there. And that's so fun to go experience it and to be able to say, how can we bring this to the US? More importantly, how can we bring this to Holmes County and like have this local touch point of something really exciting that's happening globally? And people love coffee. Everyone talks about coffee. You got your few people who say, oh, I'm a tea person, or I don't like coffee. And that's fine. Look, my family's from India. Chai is a big thing, right? By the way, it's not chai tea. It's just chai.
It's just
chai.
chai
Means tea.
I like that.
Public service announcement.
Is that like naan bread? It's
Thank
just
you.
naan?
It's just naan. Thank you. And so we usually jokingly will tell people when they say to us, oh, I don't really like coffee. I don't drink it. I was like, well, it's because you haven't had good coffee.
Right.
And this is like good coffee. That's the best way I can
It is.
Well,
good.
and let me toss in a selfless pitch for the fact that, I own a restaurant.
The cider press, which is delicious, and I go there at least once a week.
And you guys are some of our biggest supporters, but also we probably on a brunch service plow through 5 to 6 pots of Millersburg coffee because people love it, and it is truly something that they enjoy a lot. So what you're saying about trying good coffee, there is a difference.
There's a huge difference.
And then, we're not even doing it real fancy. It's just simple pour over,
But that's the point, right? The point is to make it accessible.
Right.
If you come and grab a bag of Millersburg coffee, you should be able to take it to your house, put it in your coffee maker, however you like it, and know that there is a difference and be able to taste that. Like you shouldn't need the big fancy, hubbaloo of the pour overs or the French press. If you want to, awesome. There's a lot of people who love it and they take it really seriously. But if you're just, like my sisters or like me, even in our own house, I have a Ninja coffee maker and I will put Millersburg coffee, what my husband has roasted, in that coffee maker, and I taste a difference every single time. So it doesn't have to be a sophisticated experience. It just has to taste better, and we know that it does.
So coffee advocacy, coffee education, coffee made locally, imported from home, and looking at a broader market. I mean, what is next for you guys?
Talk about the tasting room. That's next. My husband is a man of few words, hence why people listening are probably like, why won't this woman shut up? No, it's because my husband is an engineer, a civil engineer, and so he's very analytical, and he's the kind of person who loves to think before he speaks. I'm the opposite. I do not, whatever.
Lawyer.
It just comes out and we process it as we're talking.
Exactly.
It's fine. So he's accustomed to me sort of, helping nudge him along a little bit. But as far as what's next on the horizon now, so we have the roastery at our family property in Millersburg, like we said. We're expanding that to include a tasting room soon. It's not a cafe, it's a tasting room. Mm-hmm. Here's the difference. It will have, lattes and espressos and great drinks like that. But the idea is that people can come because it's kind of off the beaten path a little. It's not far from downtown Millersburg, but it's, private. And it's not meant to be a place where you come and, you grab your quick drip coffee and you run out the door. I mean, if you want to, of course, but it's more meant to be one of those atmospheres where people come up and they sort of breathe in the air. They take in all the sensory experience of just being quiet for a minute, and they come and they get, this man from Colombia, from the coffee region, as they call it, making their coffee for them in front of their face and enjoying the experience of it. So yeah, you don't have to talk to us. You don't have to socialize. Totally fine. But it's more meant for one of those things where you come up, you spend some time. We'll have Wi-Fi, so it's fine. But just having the experience of it. So, and we want to be able to give people options as well. And it's, again, not like a typical, can I get my grande mochaccino, blah, 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 blah. No, like this is This is more of like, here's what we're bringing to you from a coffee experience, and what can we make for you? Like, let us help you experience this more. So that's kind of what we're going for more so, and it's underway right now.
I truly appreciate that, because I was there when you were roasting that one night. You showed us the process, and leaning into your engineering and your analytics, you were deep into the numbers that night. You were hardcore. Like, you see this curve? Do you see what's happening right here? And I'm like, I see it. I don't understand it.
Great.
But you were into that. So this experience, this is intentional every step of the way for this.
Hopefully we get like a small roaster. We want to in the future, like, people can roast their own coffee too.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, like, I want to like supervise, like, to see like, oh, you can do like this way, how you like it. So it's like a real experience. Like, okay, I made my own coffee.
Mm-hmm.
I roasted. I roasted
cool.
like the way like I want to. So that's in the future too. And people enjoy like, okay, what I'm drinking is like how like people can do it. So if someone like, oh, I do it like, but next time you can keep going your team.
Yeah.
That I like, had experience to do it.
Yeah. The home roasters are becoming a thing, because there are some where you can roast like a tiny amount of your own, however you want it. And now, granted, you shouldn't be drinking it immediately after roasting, because it's like wine, needs to sit for a little bit. Mm-hmm. But I mean, the possibilities are endless when you can teach someone how to do that.
Yeah, you definitely don't have a home roaster, the one I saw.
No, that's a little bigger.
We had a small roaster too.
I only got to see the big one. So there is a difference in what you guys are talking about than the coffee shop experience.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like it's a little bit more like, trust us to let you experience something that you may not have before. And
100%.
that is when you're looking at a county like Holmes, and I appreciate being here. I grew up here. I've got businesses here, the whole 9 yards. Is the second largest tourist destination in the state of Ohio is Holmes County.
Yeah.
You have 1.6 million people a year coming through from all around the world to be a part of something else. Your guys' outlet for that could be then amplified. We just received a review, and I was sharing it with Tyler this morning. We had a couple from France come through
To the cider press?
to the cider press
Nice.
and leave a review. And I was like, oh, that's awesome. And I happened to see, because they were like tagged as a local reviewer on Google. So they left a bunch of reviews. So I wanted to see, are they just generally nice people? Are they leaving like difficult reviews? And it was really cool, because there was one review in the United States at Cider Press. Everything else was like Morocco and France and across the Atlantic
nice.
Ocean.
Oh, that's fantastic.
But it's just the opportunities
Yeah.
that do exist here, where people in Akron are going, why Millersburg? Why
Oh, yeah.
Holmes County? There is a reason people come to this place, and I think you guys are going to provide an amazing experience. Not just a coffee shop spot, but amazing experience for people who are looking for something.
Something different. Sure.
So this is really cool what you guys are doing with this. So what else do we need to know about you guys? What else do people listening need to know? Because the purpose of the podcast is talk about people's stories, hear from what's going on, but also share maybe some advice.
Mm-hmm.
What have you guys learned about getting up and going with this?
Yeah. Well, I have learned that business is, now listen, I'm not an expert entrepreneur by any means, but I would say that I have an entrepreneurial spirit. I've always been that way. And I think the biggest lesson from this and from anything that I've really done is take the risk. If you have some idea and you think that there's even a remote possibility that you could do it, just try it. I've been doing that my whole life. I mean, I took a risk going to Colombia in the first place to meet my husband. That was a big risk, and switching careers and, having one foot in this and one foot in the job that, my paying day job. Shh, don't tell anybody. But, take the risk, I think, is the biggest lesson that I can share. Is a lot of us these days are just like, oh, I don't know, I'm comfortable, and I know that this stage is working, and I know that I can keep going down this road. But I think for me, the biggest thing is, would you wake up in the morning and regret not having tried it?
Yeah.
If you wake up in the morning and you think, oh man, I could have had a really cool coffee business. Oh, I could have had a really cool trip to Morocco, whatever it is, and you didn't do it, why? Right? Life is too short.
Yeah. It's too easy to
stay comfortable.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And I think that's, there's always going to be growing pains. And I was just at I was in California last week on business and had a meeting with, my team at my full-time job. And we were talking about something. I think I pulled a card because we were doing like an icebreaker, and I pulled a card about, what have you learned from your failures? And I had to talk about that. And I said, well, first of all, I've never failed, so I don't know how to answer that question. Obviously joking. But I gave an example of like taking a risk and, growing through the pain of it and then coming out the other side and thinking like, wow, I can really get through anything because I got through that. And I think that's one thing in business that's so important. If you don't have that entrepreneurial risk-taking spirit, this, like it's hard to, you just have to have that. And then if you can get through it, the adrenaline of getting through it and getting onto that next stage and having that first little taste of success is so fulfilling. It just really makes it worth it. And then you learn so much and you come out tougher, you come out stronger, and you just think, wow, I can do anything, and that's really what I think that entrepreneurial spirit's all about. So that's more what I've learned. But I don't know, this is sort of your first foray outside of the engineering world. So what do you think?
No, it's my third one.
It's your third. Oh yeah, I'm sorry. That's true. You've had many careers. Yeah.
Yeah, what you say?
This is why we make a great team. He just agrees with me every time. No, but like, what have you learned from? Because you're the master roaster.
Yeah.
Along with, so let me put this in perspective. He's one man, right?
Yeah.
One person. He's the master coffee roaster. He's internationally certified by the Specialty Coffee Association. He's running this business in Holmes County, and he's running it with the guys in Colombia. There's a whole team down there that he has to engage with and stay connected with every single day. So he's doing all of this. He's also the one packing the coffee and putting it in the mail. Yeah. He's the one cleaning up after everything. He's literally doing all of it.
Hustling.
So, that's
and
a
lead
lot.
Sales guy as
and
well.
And he's the lead salesman and everything. And now he's fixing a tasting room to open. So he's going to be a barista soon. He's literally doing all of it. And I think he doesn't give himself enough credit, first of all, for managing all of that. I think he's really hard on himself. And there's so many lessons learned from that you're still processing. I don't know. But like, what's the one thing you've learned about having to manage all these different lines, for example?
Well, export license from Colombia.
Yeah.
FDA here to receive the coffee.
Yeah, there's so much that goes into it.
Yeah, it's like so much in the back. Like, you don't know, like open the business in Colombia, handle that. Open the business here, handle this, taxes, everything. So it's like, it's a lot of, but I didn't feel like I go into job. Every time I wake up, it's like, okay, this is my baby.
Yeah.
And I can work like 12, 13 hours and I don't feel like anything. It's just like, I love it. It doesn't feel like a job. It doesn't feel like that pressure, like, I had to wake up, driving, be in a place like I don't like. No. Everything, like when I go with the coffee, I like it. Oh, we need to go to Akron.
Boom,
So, boom.
done.
Yeah,
Gotta go to Colombia this week. Boom, done.
Yeah, need to go to Portland. Let's go.
Yeah.
Let's go to Trip. Let's go to Trip.
Yeah.
I like Trip.
Yeah, Shreve. Yeah, there's
Yes,
a great
yeah.
coffee place, Hebrews Coffee.
Yes.
They're wonderful people. So they've got some family members from Colombia as well.
Oh, very cool.
Yeah.
Cool.
So, and I know, Tyler, you've probably been sitting on questions, wrestling with video stuff here. But
Yeah.
I do want to ask one more, and then if you have any, feel free to jump in on that. You just laid out some of the questions I had. If you were to say from the idea to where you are now, and you were to look at that as a whole picture, there's a lot of, you probably didn't know how to do any of that. How do you get an export license? How do you get
You have a sister-in-law who dates a judge. That's how you get an export license.
But solving each one of those problems, you can't look at that as a whole. You got to just look at it that there's a next thing, right?
Yeah, I mean, like we start like looking like when we can buy the coffees first in the United States. Then we see like these people, they make money. People in Colombia, like the farmers, they don't make too much. So like I don't like that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I went to Colombia. I opened the company. Okay, let's find it with the farmers. Let's try from there, and how we export this. We find people like they want like just the money. They don't care about anything else, and they want to screw you. And I'm like, okay, no. So we need an export license. We look how we can do it with the Federation of Coffee of Colombia. Okay, you need like all this process, and they're like, okay, what is the next step?
Yeah.
And then like, okay, you have influence that help you because like you can do anything by yourself sometimes.
Yeah.
And sometimes you need like that extra help.
It is like a one step at a time process though. And it's almost like, I realize why a lot of people don't have export licenses from Colombia. Like all joking aside, it's, he's a U.S. citizen now, of course, but he's also a Colombian citizen. So he's a dual citizen. And the process in Colombia, the legal process is so slow and full of red tape, and everything's very literal, and it's very hard if you're not from that area to try to go there and be part of that legal system. And so the fact that the export license in and of itself, which means that he can take the beans directly from Colombia and he can send them anywhere in the world under our name, and it's totally legal and certified. That in and of itself was such a victory, because a lot of people use middle persons, right? Like if you're a coffee business in, I don't know, I'm not going to name any names, but let's say you have a coffee shop and you know that they don't roast their own beans, or even if they do roast their own beans, there's some chance, a big chance, that they don't actually like go to the location. I mean, if they're bringing in coffee from Ethiopia and Costa Rica and all these, they're not going there all the time. They have to use someone. So they might go visit the farms occasionally to see what's going on and to, visit, but we're on the farms every day. So we can attest to all of it. And that in and of itself was such a huge victory. But to your point, Chris, it's like, you think about all I have to have this. And then the challenges that come out of that, of the problem solving, kind of take you to that next level, right? Like, okay, well, we can't do this and we can't do this. So how do we fix it? Let's go here. Okay, next thing. And I think if I can speak for you, like he's been problem solving and critical thinking for so long to get to where he just wants to have a baseline, that I don't think he's ever stopped and said, oh my gosh, I'm really good at that. Like I can't believe I did all of this in a year. It's incredible. One person, and my dad's been really helpful too, of course, because they're business partners. But he's like semi-retired, and he's not as in it as Sebastian is, and so he's great with business advice and guidance and all of that. But the legwork all boils down to him. Yeah. And I don't think he's ever stopped and thought, oh my goodness, in the last 8 months, I have done A, B, C, D, E. Like, it's just amazing when I look at it, and he doesn't give himself enough credit for it.
The entrepreneurial superpower is the ability to just keep solving problems.
Keep moving forward, yeah.
The irrational optimism that you have to have time to time, that I will be able to solve this problem that at this moment I cannot see the solution to, drives the entrepreneur forward. And that's something I appreciate about what you guys just shared, is because there were problems you probably didn't have answers for.
Absolutely not.
And you found them.
We were like, how do we, and it's little stuff. And I think that's sometimes where people get stuck. They have the idea, they see, it's so easy, especially in this age of social media. What do you see when you look at people's Instagrams? You see the highlight reel, if you will.
You see the best of everything.
You see the output, the outward result, but you have no idea what happened behind the scenes to get there. And I think when people start businesses, especially, they don't realize, like, oh my goodness, there are going to be problems that I don't even know yet that I have to solve. And so everyone's striving for that, that glory or that success story, but they're not thinking about all the steps along the way. And I think, from him being an engineer and just being trained to think about those tiny things along the way, that's like what he used to tell me about when he was in school. They would have to like go analyze a bridge or something and like talk about all the little things it takes to get that bridge functional and safe for the public and to maintain it after the fact. And there's so much minutia that goes into that thought that I think he can naturally parlay that into business. But then I think where sometimes you get stuck is that if you don't have the answer right away, you get kind of nervous. But like Chris said, you're learning as you go about solving those problems, and you're coming out smarter and stronger in the end. And I think that's something that gets people stuck when they talk about following their dreams, because they can't see the steps along the way to get to that, social media worthy, whatever. Yep. And so they're just like, how overnight success? How do you do this? Like even people in Colombia, they see what he's doing here in the US and they're like, oh, excuse me, Mr. Big Shot. And he's like, no, you guys have no idea like what I've been through to get to this point. And it's not even the full plateau, of where he wants to go. Like he's just getting started. We're just getting started. So it's just really interesting to see the perception versus the reality. I think that's a big lesson too.
No one wants to hear that side of things.
No one wants to hear the grunt work.
I feel like we've talked about that on here on the podcast before, but in my years of business, I couldn't tell you how many times people will be like, hey, can we grab coffee? Like, we haven't seen each other in a few years. I know what's about to happen. You want to know how to get to like self-employment life, or you want to know how to be like
so glamorous,
yeah,
Tyler.
yeah. And it's like, no, it sucks sometimes. Like the taxes are terrible.
Yeah. Oh.
Like your sales, you're doing sales, you're doing management, you're doing all these things.
Customer
service. Yeah. Like people don't have any idea. And they're like, so how do I want to quit my job like this week. What do I do? Like, what are you,
year.
yeah. What are you good at? First of
Yeah.
all, like, well, what are you passionate about? And that's like the big thing is if you can find something that you're staying up till 2:00 in the morning and getting up at 5:00 to do it again, sometimes before you go to your other job.
Yeah.
Cause you love it enough that you want to do it in those other hours. Like people don't want to hear that though.
Mm-mm.
They want to hear, oh yeah, like you just applied for this license and they gave it to you, and all of a sudden you're making $1 million off coffee.
Oh yeah, it's so
That's
easy.
I'm sure that's what people think,
That's
you know, like
exactly it. Yeah.
but it's not that way.
Yeah. And I think, to your point about sort of the pieces that go into all of it, we're not, at least I know I can speak for my husband when I say, he alluded to this earlier, we're not in this to be millionaires or whatever.
Right.
Part of the goal of all of this is to create an ecosystem where we are helping contribute to different economic development opportunities. So not just here in Holmes County, we obviously want to be part of the ecosystem here, but also in Colombia. Like he was saying, there are farmers who bust their butts every single day to grow these beans. And sometimes, with agriculture, it can be unpredictable, right? They need to be paid fairly. They need to be shown that their product is worth it. And we don't want to be one of those companies that comes in, swoops up, takes up all their stuff, gives them the minimum and sells it for, a $5 latte, and we pocket the rest of it. That's not where we come from.
Yeah, I was going to ask you guys about that because you had mentioned that was something you were pretty passionate about. That was the unfairness in how much the farmers make. So what's that look like? Yeah, I don't. You don't have to give us like numbers or anything like that, but that's something you were.
Yeah, I mean, you talk more to the farmers in terms of like inequity, right? Like,
Yeah.
So for example, if a farmer is making, like we want to double what a farmer would make, something like that, right? Or maybe at least get them over.
Yeah, we want to they improve themselves too, because if they make improvements, the coffee will be better, or he get like more coffee. So we want to help them to help in the future to us.
Yeah. It's good for everybody.
Yeah. And there are some farmers who are so accustomed to being lowballed that they just take it, and we will go, no. Like help us understand what's going to put you in a better situation. Like, for example, you have the farmer, but then you have all of the workers that they hire to pick the coffee, and it's a seasonal thing. So there will be farms where, you'll have 10 seasonal workers show up to pick the coffee, and they make money for that 10 weeks or whatever it is. Right. So it's or not even like a month, right?
2 months.
2 months. Excuse me. Yes. So, like, what are they paying them? Can they afford to pay them a living wage so that, right? So it's a whole downstream effect is like, how do you create a business ecosystem that doesn't just benefit us? Like, we're not in this just to, I grew up very privileged. I'll be totally honest. I have generations of family who worked really hard so that I could have choices in this life, and that I could easily step away from a job for 2 months if I needed a mental health break and be okay. That is my privilege. And I want other people to have that too, because I've benefited so much from it, and I really appreciate it. And my dad's an immigrant. Obviously, he came from nothing. I mean, they were poor refugees in India. He built up a whole life for us, and he's the reason that we're here. But that also came from his parents and his grandparents, and then my mother's side, same thing. They grew up in poverty prior to my mom, and everybody just worked their way out to give my generation all the opportunity that we could imagine. Yep. So now we want to turn around and say, how do we give that opportunity to other people who maybe haven't had that before? Yep. And that's in our business practices. That's in being, working in a sustainable environment. It's pay equity. It's really making sure that we are sort of, sharing the riches, if you will, sharing the wealth, with our team in Colombia. Like even their minimum wage that we're paying them right now is more than they were making at their full-time jobs, prior. We said, what do you make today? They told us. And we said, all right, we'll give you like 10% on top of that. And then whatever you sell, you get the commission from it. They were like jumping at that opportunity because it's only up from there. Yeah. Right. So those are like the little
man, that work is so hard.
It's so hard.
I've had the privilege to I've been to Haiti and Honduras and went to a couple coffee farms where we were there. And that was one thing I was like, man, I cannot imagine doing this all day.
Yeah.
And I recall one story, and it kind of, goes to show what it's like. Cause I don't know how you guys do it, but we're getting paid per pound basically that they picked. Yeah. At least the pickers were.
Yeah.
Pickers were getting paid per pound. And I remember we were there right when they were all coming into weigh-in one day, and the owner of the farm drove down the mountain, picked everybody up, and brought them up.
Yeah.
And they were weighing in at the top of the hill, and they were there for probably an hour weighing. And this dude came up the hill with 2 bags over his shoulder and walked the whole way up. I was like, oh, he missed the bus. And I felt bad. I felt bad looking back that I kind of made a joke about it.
I mean,
but I was like, oh, he must have missed his rider. Yeah. And they were like, oh no, he said he'd rather stay an extra half hour and walk the 2 miles to where they were weighing it just so he could get an extra pound or 2, for the day. And I just remember being like, man, that's how privileged am I at home where I'm like, oh, I just clock in and clock out when I go home, and this guy's willing to stay an extra half hour and then walk 2 miles
with
after
bags of coffee.
With probably 50 pounds of coffee on his shoulders.
Wet and everything.
Yeah. Just to make an extra.
Yeah.
So it's one coffee roaster here in Holmes County that we present the story. And he said he wants to buy green coffee for us. If we show him we want to support the farmers.
So green coffee, by the way, is the coffee unroasted.
Oh yeah.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
So he said oh, that sounds perfect for me because I want to help the farmers too. I asked him he wants to go to Colombia. He said in the future I want to go to this place and see where I can get my coffee from. So we are not just selling roast coffee. We want to help other people to get
the best quality coffee too, and be part of that whole process.
And he said yep, I like your idea. I think our values are the same, and he wants to go in the same way.
It's incredible.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's where that export license comes in, because then we can do business with everybody and then be the ones who actually physically get it to this location, but we're all in it together, kind of thing.
Yeah, it's not about I feel like I appreciate that about you guys, that it's not about holding your cards close and not allowing, you're very open to the idea of sharing it with the people in the community and not just.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean,
that's the Colombian way, though. I feel like when you go to Colombia, if you for example, we went to that coffee farm, Don Manolo. After that tour, we went and sat down with them. Remember?
Yeah.
We said, hey, can we come see you again? This was 2 years later, after things had cleared sort of a little bit with the pandemic and we could travel again. We went and met them again, just the two of us. And he said to was it Miguel? What's his name? Manuel, yeah. Mm-hmm. So he said to Manuel, hey, we want to do this in the U.S. We don't know where to start. Manuel sat down with us and explained everything he possibly could. He did not have to share that information. Yep. Mm-hmm. He could have been oh no, I have a coffee business. I want to export to the U.S. No, he literally said, well, here are the challenges and here's what we've learned and da 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 da. I mean, he had no problem sharing the information at all. And it's the same thing with everywhere else. When you went and got your barista certificate, for example, there's a place called Hacienda La Colina in Pereira as well. And the owner used to be a pilot. And then he became a coffee roaster and he opened this beautiful location where people go and, sit. Same kind of idea with what we're trying to do here in Holmes County. People go and they sit, they have brunch, they get different pour overs, whatever. And same thing, we went and visited with him. He walked us through his roastery. He showed us exactly what he was doing. There's no sense of oh no, this is competition. I mean, it feels like every time we go there and we kind of go for information or whatnot, it's, hey, there's room for all of us. Let's all work together to elevate this experience so everyone can benefit. I mean, and it's small things in Colombia too. If you go to a restaurant, they let you order from the restaurants nearby if they don't have something that you want. It's oh, do you have lemonade? No, we don't, but our friends across the street do. We can order it from there for you. They all help each other in everything. And I think that communal experience of let's lift each other up together is what Sebastian brings to the table more than even, his intelligence and all of that. It's just his heart is always in the place of how do we do this together? Because that's the kind of community in which he grew up. And that's what he's noticing here in Holmes County, right? As he has conversations with other business owners and, like Chris and like you, Tyler, everybody kind of wants to lift each other up because at the end of the day, we all benefit from that. Mm-hmm. If we can all create a really great community together where we're providing services and putting a name out for ourselves, that's better for everyone. Yep. So why not, Yep.
Beneficial business is a model that is too late to the table at capitalism, but it's something that we think we can probably all participate in.
Absolutely. Small business especially, yeah.
So speaking of beneficial business, shamelessly promote what you guys are doing. Where can people figure out, find out more? Where can they go? Tell everybody on the podcast your social handles, whatever. Where can we go to find out more?
Yeah, so it's really hard. It's Millersburg Coffee on Instagram, Millersburg Coffee Company on Facebook, and www.millersburgcoffee.com. So right now we sell online, but then we also offer free local pickup or delivery. So if you're ordering from Millersburg and you want to give us a shot, you just select pickup, you email us, there's information on how to do that, and then we'll organize a pickup or drop off. We've actually dropped off here at your office, Chris.
Yep.
So free local pickup delivery.
And where can they, if there's somebody is local, are there retailers already for you guys? I mean, we talked about Cider Press that we actually serve it, but are there retailers locally too that you guys anybody that we can point to?
Yeah. In downtown Millersburg, we are at Newtown Gallery.
Okay.
So our friends there sell our bags.
Love Mark. Great guy.
Yeah, Mark's great. And then obviously you can go enjoy a great meal and a cup of coffee at the Cider Press. I do it myself gratuitously. I've probably drank my own coffee there several times, and I'm happy to pay for it. And I think, that's kind of it for now.
We want to get the coffee in Shreve.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
So eventually there's a supermarket in Shreve that the Hebrews folks run as well. So we're working on getting in there as well.
So you guys are looking not only
I'm sorry, I forgot. We're also at Saul's in Berlin.
Oh, there you go.
My goodness, that just happened recently.
Yeah.
I'm trying to keep it up. So we have a booth at Saul's in Berlin, and we sell coffee and we sell some merch over there. So there's coffee cups and tumblers as well.
Nice. So you guys are looking not only for, retail sales and moving your stuff, you're looking for relationships for people who are looking to source responsibly and looking for the same aligned values. You guys are looking for retail places that are interested in carrying this stuff. So anybody who might have any of those contacts, you guys are open to basically any conversations right now.
Definitely.
Awesome. Well, we've gone long, Tyler.
That's okay. The camera that I was concerned about shut off, so
we're all good.
About 10 minutes in. So.
We've got a little long today, but I really appreciate both of you telling us about your story, sharing what's going on. And if anybody wants to follow up with you guys, I know you're just open to talk to them. So if anybody hears that podcast, wherever you are, reach out and talk to them. Thank you guys so much. And so on behalf of Tyler and I, you've been listening to Basic Business Advice. Have a great day.